Take a sip of the slurp, ready for the work. Come and fight the day that got the bugs, them I love. Ready is to ready to put my feet on the dirt. When we start the battle, yeah, the bound we get hurt. Sound coming, get running, before we get running. Load up the bus, make the fire get burning. Rise up together, bring the love to the island. White Outlaws, you know that is a great plan. Ride the battle bus, ride the battle bus, ride the battle bus. Come together cause you know they can hold us. Ride the battle bus, ride the battle bus, ride the battle bus. Unite together, they can live back control us. Jaiba, take me to the island. I pray that it's safe when I live. Jaiba, take me to the island. I pray that it's safe when I live. Oh, they up on the bus and we don't want no fuss. Don't want no fighting and we don't want no cuss. They up on the bus and we don't want no drama. All a little vibe, just dance and keep your calm. Jones in the place and him don't match no face. Fish stick and from here it's the box that I hear this. Like night links and minders when they touch here you wipe the dust. Renegade radar, ready to boost. Jaiba, take me to the island. I pray that it's safe when Let me see you get loose out on the floor. I see you moving, but you gotta give me some more. We got a new jam, I can show you the moves. Just follow my feet, keep on sliding so smooth. When you're feeling that groove, do what you wanna do. Just move, oh baby, like you got nothing to lose. When you're feeling that groove, do what you wanna do. Just move, like you got nothing to lose. Just move, feel that groove, I feel that groove. Just move, what you wanna do. Just move, oh yeah. Let me see you feel that groove. You feel that groove. Just move, yeah. Break it down now. All right, all right. I think it's time for me to show y'all a few of these new moves. First, we're gonna take our left foot and go. Bop. Now back up, turn around and go. Bop, 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 bop.
Oh, come on, man. You gotta be more specific than that.
What? What do you mean? All right, all right, all right, all right. Here we go. Come on, dance with me. 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 Dance with me. Come on. When you're feeling that groove.
Hey everybody, just wanted to come on and just talk a little bit. Sometimes I get this feeling like, hey, I should probably sit down and record my thoughts on something, and then I generally do it, and then I don't publish it. So this might become that. I don't really mind. It's just thoughts. It's not going to be a big deal. But the thing that inspired me to come and say something is just a series of experiences I've had, most recently on Quest, but also PSVR 2, and I wanted to just kind of calibrate with what I'm seeing out there, because very oftentimes in the past, when there's been big market changes in the VR space, I've had a podium. I've been able to stand up and actually speak about them. That was back when we were running F Reality Podcast. You could get your voices out there. You could, talk to some friends and just kind of parry back and forth on different ideas and see where you landed. In this case,
Lemonade Pet Insurance can save you up to 90% on vet bills. Getting a quote is super easy, and half of all claims are handled instantly. Sign up faster than you can train your dog to leave it at lemonade.com/pet.
I've just been a very busy lad. I've been a very busy guy, and I've not been able to put my thoughts together, nor a show of any nature, and I have a few views I wanted to share. I always kind of stand on my own side, and again, for anybody who doesn't know this already, I am part of the Meta Partner Program, so in case that immediately sends me off to Death Island, fair enough. For those of you who've been with me for a long time, you know that I very often criticize Meta pretty strongly, mainly because I care a lot about them, and very from the early days, I was an Oculus fanboy, when the DK2 came along, it was like, should I buy this headset? Is Facebook gonna fuck it up? They might. They also might burn my eyes out. And I sat down with my wife. I literally spent 30 minutes when the pre-orders went live for the DK2, and I said, is this gonna affect me up? Is it worth the risk? And I concluded, it was like, if I get 10 years of fun out of it and then my eyes fall out of my head, it's worth it. Now, 11 years later, going on 12, looking back, my eyes had burned out of my head. I'd probably be pretty pissed off at this point. Playing what I played, things like Stormland, Medal of Honor, what else has there been? Fucking everything. There's been 2,000 games, basically, that I've played, and rounding up. And it's been brilliant. I love riding this wave. This technology wave is just like, I don't ever want to get off the train, is the point. So anyway, Meta relationship disclosed and put to one side for a second. I'm going to have some positive and negative things to say. So on the maybe unpopular opinion side, the recent studio cuts that Meta has announced this week, 4 major studios, probably more in the pipe. If you hear my kitty, that's Zoe. She likes to be part of these videos. I need to let her into this place, but I will. In a minute, I'm recording a video, Zoe. And so I heard that news, and my immediate reaction was, oh no. Like many people, you look at it and you go, oh God, what's happening? But then I sat with it. I slept on it, and I actually think it's an overall positive, and I'll tell you why. I think the biggest maybe the biggest injustice that VR ever had to incur was the distortion effect laid upon it by Facebook's acquisition of Oculus. At the time, it looked like a godsend. It looked like, again, I go back to that discussion I had with my wife. It's like, is Facebook going to fuck it up? And actually, they did. They did 2 things. They acted as an accelerator, and at the same moment, unfortunately, they undid a lot of the fledgling VR success stories and stamped out those fires. They plucked several, I would even say many, of the succeeding development teams, pulled them under the Oculus by Facebook, later Meta, umbrella, and then proceeded to just squash them, And what it left was like, just like with an electron transfer, it just leaves this hole, this kind of gap there in the market. And that's what this 4-studio closure I foresee is going to do. For a time, it's like when you burn down the forest and then little saplings come up from the undergrowth. Same thing here. So my view is actually net positive. I'm also a Meta shareholder. I do believe that they're like the next Microsoft. I think they do a lot of shady stuff, and I don't particularly like all their business plays, and I think their UX is bad, and they've at least been experimenting with something better. I think they've been absolutely raping the store. I think devs should be up in arms. I know they've had pitchforks and torches out for the last 2 years, and it's like, guys, wake up. You're burning your own platform to the ground. And seeing cracks in that, maybe. But, you know, not throwing, you know, hundreds of million-dollar projects in. It's just such a distortion. Because if you're a little guy, you're a small dev team, how do you compete with that from a quality perspective, from a consumer expectation, where they go in and they say, give me Asgard's Wrath 2, you know? And they're like, give me something of that caliber on a mobile headset, blah, blah, blah. And they even took all the, not all, they took, again, multiple of the indie studios, like Beat Games with Beat Saber, right? And they just, like, swept them up. And even the talent from those studios kind of blew the nest. We had John Carmack, who I think was the best driving force. That's my personal view. The guy can talk you into a hole, of course, but at the same time, his mindset about making sure that, let's like performance first, stability, clean out the closets, do your spring cleaning, get the thing running well, doesn't just leave the skeletons dead in the closet, but actually does that spring cleaning that's oh so needed on the platform. And I think there just isn't that same driving force inside Meta right now. It seems that way anyway. Meta are a very closeted organization. They don't do a lot of opening up their direction. Not that I think that they should. And the studio news has got a lot of people going, oh God, Meta's not interested in VR anymore. That has never been my impression of this news, nor previous doldrums that we've had to encounter or experience. And I truly believe that, I still believe that Meta believe in VR and where it's going, but they see now these lily pads that they need to step on first. It's like, yeah, make it lighter, yeah, all these things, right? I was listening yesterday to Chet Falazek I'll say of Valve, although he's got his own game studio now, I forget the name. But he was talking about basically, you know, motion sickness and that type of thing in VR, and you certainly you won't hear that from me. And I hope that the old guys in VR, those in driving positions, can kind of make way for younger generations who will shape the face of what's to come. And this is where I have some positive things to say about Meta, recently experienced. So one of the things I was really smitten with recently was we had the opportunity, my wife and I, to go in and experience through Meta Horizon Worlds. And let me just put a big asterisk there, because Horizon Worlds, I've basically always been counter to it. There's one or two games in there that I've experienced that were like, great game design, great multiplayer, easy to get into, fantastic, right? But most of what's there, and more importantly, the way Meta has treated it as more than an app, but like this super application that everyone's gotta digest. It's a bit like what Elon Musk did to Twitter when he bought it. It's like, everyone's gotta eat my tweets. Like, eat it! And Meta's been doing that with Horizon for like 2 years now, solidly. And it's draining the life force out of the other developers who have great ideas, have great communities, people who love their games, and they just don't get enough oxygen in the tank to be able to keep running. And instead, there's this blanketing cockblock at a corporate level where they said, nope, we want to be the next Roblox. And I still feel like they still believe in that. They still believe we're going to be the next Roblox. And up until very recently, I didn't think that was a winning proposition. I still don't like it. I still don't like that, you know, other worlds aren't getting that propped up, right? VR chat, for example. A lot of people think about VR chat as the seedy underbelly to VR. And let me tell you, from what I've run across, it feckin' is. But at the same time, there are some amazing creatives who have created stuff that are like multiplayer worlds, and you can go in for like 6, 10, 12 hours straight through run. Got to do it all in one sitting. Incredibly vibrant, different art pieces and constructs, things you can experience that are short, things that are just rich, vibrant communities, whether it's comedy clubs or dance halls or whatever. It's like role play stuff, you know, there's all that kind of stuff in there. I'm not a regular VR chat user. I go in maybe once every year and a half and just check out some cool stuff. Generally, people pop along to the stream and kind of tell me where to go, and I check it out, and I'm pretty wowed, honestly. But like that organic growth stuff has been smothered, set to the side. Like you won't see VR chat promoted. You really don't. You don't see it at all. Altspace is dead. Rip Altspace. That used to be fun. Sketchy Quiz, all that kind of stuff. And there's some older ones like Janus VR that are like dead as a doornail. Been dead for eons now. But like all these social platforms, even Rec Room. Like when was the last time that you saw a Rec Room in your feed? You know, like very well developed games, created community tools, and none of these are perfect, right? There's always going to be a predator or somebody bad or kids surrounding you who are saying F-bombs, like whatever. Whatever you don't like, you're going to run into it in these places. It's the digital world. That's going to happen. And whilst I think there is something to be said for like maybe gating kids and the rest of community like off, like having that private, not just a private lobby, but like almost like identity verification, and like, you know, you're not going to run into a bunch of school kids if you don't want to. You don't want to mingle with them. You know, it's like no platform has gotten that perfect. But I was in Horizon Worlds lately, and I was like, what witchcraft is this? Walking around, it felt like I was in a mall. It felt like I was in a North American mall. And again, I am experiencing it on the, you know, on the East Coast or whatever. I'm in Canada, by the way. So that experience was odd, because it was the first time that I saw a volume of people who were excited, where there were these like pockets, these like groups of people in a circle, 6, 8 people, just talking, just hanging out, just chilling, you know? Not necessarily chilling on the appointed couch where Meta's telling you should hang out, but rather like you'd see in a mall. I don't like malls. But like just hanging out, talking. And various age groups, generally, again, the ageist circles were there. But then I saw like the clothing side, and that's their whole in-app purchases. You can make yourself look so, you know, better than your buddy, and then their buddy gets incentivized to go buy some digital clothing. We talked about this on F Reality ages ago, and it's the devil, right? In-app purchases are the devil, but they also mean money. And it was like, okay, they're bringing in this kind of mall flavor where you can go shop for your digital clothes, you can buy something and show it off. I think that's proving somewhat effective. And whilst I won't be buying any of that stuff, well, not frequently anyway. I have no intention in converting my real world dollars into whatever rupees they force you, meta rupees? I don't know what they're called. And then we went to Coldplay. My wife and I, we went to this Coldplay event that they ran, and had like 20 different stereoscopic cameras. There were real life fireworks, and then all these different angles, running cameras, all this kind of stuff. And Coldplay are already kind of a too good feeling, you know, band. I like Coldplay. They're fine. They're not my favorite band. They're, you know, I liked them when I was a teenager. They're fine, as I said. But they're very, very accessible. You know, I think if you asked an average group of 10 people, probably 6 of them would like Coldplay, have heard of them, would probably listen to their music, that type of thing. So the production value of that was incredible. It was like really, really great. And it was the kind of thing where, and I've had this a few times in VR, where it's like, I should be paying for this experience, right? That's the feeling you get. You're like, they're obviously paying through the nose for the setup, the technical setup, recording it, whatever. Maybe the ticket price is paid for it. But it felt like VIP access, where when you were done after that hour and a half, that wowed hour and a half, you take the headset off. and then you're at home. And it's like, I didn't have to queue up. I didn't have to go to a place. Like, I still like doing all of that. But when we've got 3 kids, it's like, it's not happening. You know, it's really not happening. So for us to be able to access that, it again does what VR does so well for me, which is it reduces the barriers and allows more people to enjoy the thing that only a select group of people could enjoy. And still you have that populace who gets to go to the event. They go to London, they go to Wembley, and they go get to see Coldplay live, and I'll remember that for till the end of time. I still have, and I gotta show this. I still have a golden ticket on the back of a phone here that dropped during a Tool concert, and it's a Tool poster back there from when my wife and I first, after 10 years with kids and stuff, finally got out, got babysitters and whatever, went to a concert here in Toronto, and we just dropped all these like flakes, you know, down from the sky, and it was amazing. If you're a Tool fan, you'll know what I mean. It was during Numa. It was just fantastic. So the experience that we had with the Meta headset, right, with the Quest 3, wife and I in tandem enjoying that experience together, it was great. I would absolutely do that again. I will now look for events. I know Apple are doing higher quality things, probably less frequently, but I love that race. That kind of media entertainment race is fantastic. And then if we go back to just some of the thoughts about, again, the studios, what I view Meta having done, I'll use their current name, Meta having done over the last decade. They bought into the DK2, they picked up Oculus, they kicked out Palmer, the rest of the team scatters, Carmack tries his luck, he goes after a while. And in the midst of all of this, they're trying to be the monopoly. They're grabbing as many great dev studios, they're trying to win. They're trying to win the market. They subsidize the Quest 2 so heavily that nobody else can compete on the hardware side. They're making loads of software that is never going to get a return on investment. And all the devs who do have to survive and get a return on investment on their apps are getting smothered at the same time. So it's this like 3-factor effect of drown your opposition, grab all the good guys, and then drown them too. And so it's this huge suppression blanket over the entire industry. And really what they need to do is feck off. You know, they need to like back off away from all of this and stop having such a damaging effect on the market. The market that they're indexing and banking on. And the great thing is that in the midst of all of this, AI came up and, you know, they're like, oh, this is another avenue for us and we can do well at this. And they launched things like, you know, is it meta.ai? The tools that were competing with like ChatGPT, these models that people could deploy for free. And, you know, Meta's all about getting their name out there. And I remember when Google Chrome did the same thing with the browser, and they just like threw on the marketing. And they actually ended up winning out, Google Chrome being the leading browser, you know? So I'm kind of expecting that Meta can still dominate in that space. They're not the leader right now. They could. And the point is, between that and then their wearables, like their Ray-Ban glasses and stuff like that, like, they're really onto something, and they're refining it. They're refining it. Just like they've been refining, you know, like touch controls and pass-through and 3D model shaping and scanning your whole room and knowing what all the objects are. Like, these are all really tough, like, scientific problems, but they are finite. They actually have a solution. They just take time, blood, sweat, and tears to get through. And honestly, the R&D arm of Meta is probably the thing that I applaud the most. And as an electronic engineer, that's how I studied. It's not what I practice. I have such an appreciation for that, those labs, the scientists behind all of this, and they do such hard work. But the part that needs to die, and I'm glad because I think it is dying now, is Meta saying, first party studio, so we're going to buy the studio, we're going to bring it in, we're going to fund the project, we're going to take the thing out. And it's been a loss leader, right, for a number of years. And it's like, guys, could you just stop doing that? And I think lately they've basically said, we're going to stop doing that. Which tells me, compounded with the other news that I've heard about Horizon and about their operating system and their headset goals, and now they're moving away from studios and making big, double or triple A budget games for VR. See, if I was an indie dev, I'd be celebrating because it's like, you're getting out of my way. Things like itch.io, the devs that are there, solo dev in a studio apartment, college basement, that dev has a chance again to like organically grow and be successful. So, whilst it's a little bit difficult to maybe say it, I'm actually really net positive on the recent news. I saw Meta recently went backwards in terms of their UI. So they had, I think it was called Navigator, this kind of funky looking UI that ran a bit slow, it was difficult to navigate, and they took a step back. I hope that stays because the old system of navigating your apps is better. But I appreciate that they're trying. They're trying to do something better. So I think if they can, I'll coin the term, if they can unfuck their store and get Horizon out of the way and just treat it like a normal app, whilst at the same time not losing track of that, like it being kind of like a B-side to a record, people can still run across it naturally, and, it seems to be a budding community that is actually growing and seems to be taking root, particularly with younger population. But if it's doing what I feel like they're doing, and they keep doubling down on that and doing a bit more with it, I think that could be some success. I think just right now, this is not the era of like AAA games. Then you have studios like Flat to VR who are taking, flat games and converting them. And I think that that's actually the best formula right now. And in a couple years, when we have AI converters who can kind of take a flat game and just be like, here, you've got VR controls. Just like throw it to this converter and it does it. And it does a good enough job to let you explore that world and look around and appreciate the interpolated environment or backside of a gun that was never coded by the dev, but AI has decided to fill in the blanks. That's going to be great. And the tools around Horizon Worlds about like the whole metaverse concept, I think everybody cringes at.
For a limited time, at City's New Year's sale, make a fresh start at home with up to 20% off, plus 60 months special financing. City Furniture, designed for love.
Could become an inevitability 5 years, 10 years down the road. And I hear 5 years, 10 years a lot of times. And when I started to say 5, 10 years, I was probably 30. I'm now 40, going to 41 soon. And I do feel like it's going to take us another 10 years to kind of get there. A few final thoughts before I wrap this up. So if I do end up publishing this, and you like hearing this kind of stuff, albeit one-sided and not surrounded by a bunch of other people that talk back to me and straighten me out or give me different points of view, I'd love to hear what you think. It's been quite frustrating for me because I've had a little bit of performance anxiety with the streams, particularly not being able to run every single week. We've been trying to buy a house. Most of you know this, blah, blah, blah. Stick that to one side. Hopefully my next stream is going to be PSVR 2. So let me talk about PSVR 2 for a second. We initially heard that Astrobot wasn't going to get VR support, and then they kind of shat on it and laughed at it and pointed at it like it was some damaged child. And a lot of us, reacted in the same way. Like, the hell? Like, this is so obvious. You just need, like, a third-person camera and boom, you're done. Like, why not do VR? Astrobot is so easy. Like, I say that not having developed a VR game. But... And then, Resident Evil 9. Like, arguably RE7 and RE8 are some of VR's strongest contenders. Just the visceral nature of getting in there and dirty and gritty. I remember RE7, the head bobbing up from, like, the sewer pit water, and it just floating up underneath you, and you'd be like, oh, it was so disgusting. And then being deep in the dark depths with that horrible white flesh of that woman in Madison. Oh, God. Like... I've never screamed my lungs out so many times. VR is designed for horror. You want to feel scared? Feckin' go in there. So, like, it is baffling to me. I held my disbelief, suspended my disbelief for RE7 early on, and RE8, and I'm like, it'll come to VR. It'll come to VR. But for the dev studio to come out and actually say it's not coming, which I believe the sources I've seen are legitimate. I'm like heartbroken. There's so much to play. I'm playing Thief at the moment. I'll be playing that this weekend. And anyway, I wanted to tell you my thoughts on all of this. So at the moment, still, PSVR 2 is my favorite headset. Still, I believe in VR. I don't see VR going anywhere anytime soon because, again, I'm not going to touch Resident Evil 9 until it's VR. I won't. That said, two other close companions of mine, things that I use almost every day at the moment. My Steam Deck. I'm not super excited for Valve's headset. I do want to try it, but I'm not one who's like, oh yeah, I don't usually jump on the new bandwagon that often, but I love my Steam Deck. Did emulation with it. Recently been playing through Mass Effect. I tried it a few times. I tried to get into it. Didn't work. I put like maybe another 10 hours in now, just over the last week. And now it's got its hooks in me, and I'm like, oh god, story. Oh Jesus. Oh, my characters. Oh, what's going on? So don't spoil anything for me, please. But I've started Mass Effect. I'll be moving on to 2 and 3 in due course, right? They're making all those critical decisions in the game. And then maybe the last thing to mention here is my X-Reel Air 2 Ultras are what I'm using. So it's got chromatic dimming, nice square panels, OLED display. I can lie in bed, so I'm feeling absolutely shattered. I'm like I can't stand up. I can't do VR. I can still immerse myself with these glasses, and like, I don't know if you've not tried one of these display glasses yet, because they're quite expensive. It's like $600 or something like that. I can't remember what I paid for mine. I got mine used. You know, people are moving on to a new version. I'm like, I'm just going to get the older version and be happy with that. I've been super happy with it. It drains battery like nothing else, but it's also so handy. Well, either at night, not disturb my wife, you know, with a bright screen or whatever. She can sleep and I can just game away for an hour before bed. And I've been doing that. So those are the things that I've been occupying my free time with. I really want to get more streams in a month. I really do. I do. I miss being more closely connected to my audience. It's why I'm doing this bloody video. Just came in from shoveling the snow out there. We got like 4 or 5 inches overnight, and it's just like, sometimes when I'm doing those things, exercise, I think about, you know, it's my time. It's like my, not New Year's resolution. I don't do that. But it's my time to just go outside my body, look at myself and go, what are you doing, Zim? Are you doing what you're happy with? Are you doing what you want to be doing? Are you talking to people? And there's this buzz on the net right now of like net negativity, and I just don't agree with it. I don't agree with the net negativity. I am not, you can tell me now, like, I'm a fan of VR, and I'm a fan of VR products generally. I am not a fan of Meta. I think they've fucked things up for far too long. However, they've left both a big stain and a big, like, positive mark at the same time.
Joy is very hard to come by whenever you're...
Here we go, Miami, Indiana. That's our national championship game. Apparently, if you didn't predict this in July, you don't know ball. I don't know. Well, we don't, because we didn't predict it. It is proudly presented to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Academy's making the game possible. How about that? Down there at Hard Rock Stadium, home stadium of the Miami Hurricanes. The table is set, and either way, this is a legendary story. Now, some are saying, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing, that if Indiana wins this game, it's the greatest story in the history of college football. That's for later in the show. But if Miami wins this, do you understand they're doing something that hasn't happened since I was a mere youth? Running around in rural Georgia, and I was being taught about what Miami had been and what the U had been. And then, I mean, if you're 19, 20 years old, you got no clue what I'm talking about. You haven't seen them relevant on the national scene in your adult or adolescent life. And now they are. Led by a guy that for a couple of years people said couldn't get Miami to this point, you know, because he's only a recruiter, that being Mario Cristobal. So point being, either way, no matter who wins this thing, the possibilities are endless. It's going to be a great story. Corey Heatherman, defensive coordinator from Miami, defensive coordinator under Curt Cignetti. Now, since I'm a sicko, I listen to every second of all the press conferences leading into these things. So I was at the gym the other day. I was listening to Kurt Signetti talk about Corey Heatherman. You know how sometimes a guy has coached on someone else's staff and they just give lip service, but really they couldn't care less. Kurt Signetti talked about Corey Heatherman as if it was a prodigal son that had left him. Talked about how he had as much respect for him as any football coach that he's ever had on his staff. Now, it just so happened he had Bryant Haynes waiting in the wings to elevate, so the defense for Kurt Signetti didn't really fall off. But I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about common opponents. Sometimes in playoff situations, national championship situations, we really don't have a lot of cross-referencing. In the NFL, you normally have it. In college football, sometimes you don't. Well, not only do we have the common opponent here, it just happened. Literally, it just happened in conference championship weekend when Indiana played Ohio State, and then it happened when Miami played Ohio State. 13-10 was the final in Indianapolis, and 24-14 was the final in Dallas. What can Ryan Day teach us? Well, he didn't answer the phone when we called him a second ago, so he will not be joining us. Therefore, we have to dig through it. We have to parse through it ourselves and figure this thing out. So here's where my mind starts on the game. It all boiled down to the line of scrimmage. Wouldn't you know that with all these changes in college football, this game still comes down to the two teams that have been getting it done at the highest level on the line of scrimmage. And I want to fill in the blank for you for just a second. Because I've been saying this, and people have been saying this about Indiana games pretty much all year, but especially in the playoffs. And it is blank has to deal with Indiana. Rightfully so, because Indiana's been the best team in the country for a vast majority of the season. And so whether it be Oregon, whether it be Alabama, you're thinking to yourself, on the lines of scrimmage, Bama's got to deal with Indiana. Man, Oregon's going to have to deal with Indiana. Hey, Miami's got to deal with Indiana too. However, this is the first of Indiana's playoff games where I've legitimately found myself saying, but you know, Indiana's really got to deal with them too, them being Miami. It is a fascinating matchup. A lot of times your eyes follow the ball, which means you just watch the quarterback and you watch the tailbacks. Maybe it goes to a wide receiver or a tight end. This is as big a glue your eyes on the line of scrimmage game as you could really have in college football. And that's with a Heisman Trophy winner playing quarterback in this game. Now, we'll talk about Fernando Mendoza in just a second, but Miami's ground game has really peaked in the playoffs. And I'm not saying they were a poor man's version of themselves in the regular season, but Mark Fletcher's doing what you would hope he does, and that's playing his best football at the most important time of the year. Those offensive linemen are playing exactly how they were recruited to play and how they were developed to play and how they were taught to play. I was talking to someone about that earlier today, you know, because a lot of teams are very active in the portal. Miami's been very active in the portal. The difference is Miami's guys play with a different edge than any other team out there, including portal-heavy teams. So it's not just portaling guys in. And frankly, some of these guys were recruited out of high school and developed there. So there's a lot about the DNA of Miami that's authentic to Miami. I'm saying all that to say I'm very excited to see and very interested to see what kind of effect that size differential has, the physicality has. Is there a difference in physicality? Because normally it's been Indiana that's had that edge. Hey, maybe they'll have it here. I just haven't seen anyone have a physical edge on Miami. So clip that, put it in the hype video, do whatever you need to do. Miami's run game's peaked in the playoff. They have run it for 150 or more against everyone they've played, and that included Ohio State, and that is, at last check, a top 10 run defense. And then they did it against Ole Miss. Of course, they did it on the road at A&M, and that was a game where we had tropical storm force winds, and everyone knew no one was going to really throw the ball 10 or more yards down the field. I think the Penn State game is the comp here. Out of all the games that Indiana played this year, stylistically, I think the Penn State game most readily compares here. Penn State carried it 33 times for 117 yards. I think Miami's got to do better than that. I was over on FanDuel earlier, by the way. Their over-under, Miami's over-under rushing number in this game, as of 5 o'clock today at least, was 96.5 yards. So I think their number needs to be higher than that. Because otherwise, you may end up asking Carson Beck to do more than you need to be asking him to do. Not to say Carson Beck's a weakness, but I think we've all understood what Miami's sweet spot in terms of offensive balance and play calling is. All right, that's the first thing. Does Miami really break through that thicker ice that is the Indiana run defense? Are they really putting up 130, 140? Are they putting up 150 again? Whole different ballgame if they do. Second thing, you can't let Fernando Mendoza settle in. Because as much as everyone was focused on the turnovers that Indiana forced against Oregon, and those were obviously game changers, I was sitting there thinking to myself, wow, this is a blowout game. However, well, it ended up being a blowout game. However, I don't care if they didn't turn the ball over. If Mendoza's dealing the way he was against Oregon, Oregon's not beating him, but no one else is beating him either. You cannot let him get zoned in. Now remember, in the game before that, the Rose Bowl game, Bama sacks him, 2 times on the opening 3 plays, and you're thinking, oh, here we go. Here we go. Bama must be bringing it a little bit differently up front, and he's not rattled, and they make a couple of adjustments, and they settle in, and it's ball game. And they settled in against Oregon, and it was ball game. And he's making these third down throws. They end up being 11 of 14. And honestly, I don't even remember where the 3 were. They felt surgical on third down. You can't let that happen. Now, fortunately, you got to look in the mirror if you're Miami and think to yourself, we won't. These are the cats that can get after you. These are the kinds of players defensively that don't let you settle in on third down. Because he had more touchdowns than incompletions in a semifinal playoff situation. So that's pretty terrifying. Miami is a top 5 sack team, which means obviously also they're going to pressure the quarterback. They're going to affect the quarterback. So your twofold hope there, if you think that you're going to get after Fernando Mendoza, and maybe, I don't know, it seems so far out of left field, maybe you even force some interceptions. Maybe you force turnovers, which Indiana just doesn't really do. But the approach has to be, number one, you got to earn the right to rush the passer, because nothing renders a pass rush more ineffective than just a bunch of 3rd and 2s and a bunch of 4th and 1s. And Indiana's very good at doing that. They're very good at staying on schedule. They're so lethal on third down because it's not 3rd and 7 plus all the time. They're really good at 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, move the chains. And so the first thing you got to do is you got to earn the right to rush the passer, which means you got to be pretty stout against the run. Hey, quick time out here. Are you subscribed to the channel? It doesn't cost anything. It's free. Please do it. It helps us maintain the show at this level. That's it. That's all I got. Back to the clip. Like I said, Miami's got to look in the mirror. We got the number 6 run defense in the country. We will win early downs. And then we'll get you in third down. And we're going to trust being the number 11 third down defense in the country that we're going to be able to get off the field. And if you can do that, that's wonderful. And at that point, it's game on. But Indiana, I think, kind of swings the game here. Like, out of all the other factors, and there are a million of them, but that's the number 1 third down offense in the country. And I'm going to use a phrase that I normally hate because it normally doesn't apply in sports, but it applies here. Indiana's the number 1 third down offense in the country, and it's not close. Like, it's not even close. There is a gap between Indiana and whoever number 2 is. Who was number 2, Jesse? Do you remember? Ohio State. Now, Ohio State was good on third down this year. They are looking up a few rungs on the ladder at Indiana. So if it goes that way, and then that means Mendoza settled in, you're done. You're cooked. Miami's not beating them. No one's beating them, which gives you all the more reason to not let them settle in. This, unlike the previous games, is a game that if you're looking at style, if you're looking at flow, this is one where I theorize Miami should want to grind it and should want to slow it down. Now, that doesn't mean Indiana is uncomfortable playing that way. They're totally comfortable playing that way. But I think in terms of style versus style, it makes a lot more sense for Miami to want this. Because unlike these previous games, hey, there's a reason this point spread is what it is. Indiana's favored by 8.5. They've been the better team. So far this year, they've been the better team. I thought about the Ole Miss game, that you grinding the game may build the trap door under the game. And if you want to know what I mean by that, go back and watch the Ole Miss preview video, because the game played out exactly how we sort of laid it out. Miami looks like they're dominating on the stat sheet, but their style of play just doesn't let them pull away, and Ole Miss is in it at the end. They ended up taking the lead. Now, they lost the lead. Miami took it back. Carson Beck goes on a hero drive. And if you get that kind of Carson Beck here, you can beat Indiana too. If you get that level of physicality on the offensive line, if you don't allow 11 of 14 on third down, you can get yourself into that situation in the fourth quarter. The difference here is I don't think Miami has any business trying to run 88 plays offensively, because I think their sweet spot is the kind of game where, I don't know, you run 58, 62 plays, but you lean. Indiana's not folding. I mean, I've watched them plenty enough to know they're not folding, so you're looking to win on margins here. It's not utter domination, because I just don't think that's possible with Indiana. I'm glad to watch you prove me wrong, but I don't think that's possible. But how much edge do they have? Like, if we really do get into this game a little ways, you know, let's say everyone weathers the storm. No one's up 17-3. Because if that's a different conversation. So if we get through like that early portion, it's early second quarter, 10, 9, 8 minutes to go until the half. It's a one-possession game either way. It's tied. What have we seen Miami able to do this game? Are we watching it and saying, hey, they're bringing it, but Indiana's giving it right back? Are we looking at it and saying, you know, this game's tied, but dude, Miami's done nothing on the ground. Carson Beck's made some really tight window throws on third down, but they can't keep living like this. Or is it a situation where, boy, Mark Fletcher's already got 68 yards on the ground. He keeps falling forward. That Miami offensive line's getting a push. That size differential really is mattering. Unlike their previous games, Indiana can't just sit in a too-high shell and still stop the run with 4. They're having to commit numbers to the box. Malachi Tony's making plays on the outside, and it's a tie game, but I feel good about Miami's chances. I'm really, really curious about what version of that story we're telling. It could be that we're telling none of those, and Indiana's just up big again. Because they're really good at breaking that dam. They're really good at water pressure here, water pressure there. Oh, there's your crack? Start kicking over there. And they start kicking, and it breaks. That can absolutely happen here. That's not a fun preview, though. So we don't normally preview games we think are going to be blowouts. We don't think this one's going to be a blowout. Situationals are everything. Indiana, I think by a mile, has been the best situationally aware team, the most fundamentally sound team. They have been the excellence of execution. Who was that, Jesse? Bret Hart. Yeah. Best there is, best there was. And as besides Shawn Michaels, the best there ever will be. So Indiana's critical mistakes would shock me most. Think about all the stuff that would shock you in this game. Not aside from the scoreboard itself. What are some things, I'll be interested to see the comment section on this actually. What are the things that would shock you the most about this game? Because to me, by a mile, the thing happening that would shock me the most is several critical mistakes by Indiana. It wouldn't shock me if Miami won. It would shock me if Miami won because of self-inflicteds and because of penalties and because of being -2 turnovers, botched snaps, a bunch of procedural issues, just guys not handling the moment. If Indiana was victim of that, that would genuinely shock me. Because every opportunity they've had to suffer that, Big Ten championship game, Rose Bowl, last week, the spots keep getting bigger and bigger. They keep getting favored by more and more, and they don't flinch. They look the exact same. In fact, I would argue they've played their best ball. I would say about Fernando Mendoza, who kind of embodies this. Think about how significant what I'm about to say is. He went and played good enough to win the Heisman Trophy, rightfully so, and then he's gotten better since he won the Heisman Trophy. Because I think he's played his best football in the playoffs. So it would shock me if that was why Miami ended up winning this game. They're second in penalties in the country. They're number 1 in turnover margin. So the one thing that sometimes creeps into play here is each game has a history and a life of its own. Each play in a game has a history and a life of its own. So yes, I will grant you, because we see it all the time, you look at someone's stat profile, like I just said about Indiana. Boy, they're number 2 in the country in turnovers. Well, if you have 6 of them, it doesn't really matter what you did during the season. In that 60-minute span, you were penalized. It doesn't matter if you're number 1 in turnover margin in the country. If you are -1 or -2, you lost the turnover battle that day. So a season is not a game. A game's just 4 quarters. A game's 60 minutes.
Have you seen anything like this at the drugstore? No, you haven't. Look Optic is making the most beautiful readers. This is Laurel and Champagne. I'm wearing the progressive lens, which means it's clear up top. I've got magnification in the bottom, only where I need it. So if I'm looking at my cell phone or reading a book, I'm going to be looking down. If I'm driving a car or watching TV, I don't have to suddenly put my glasses on to read something because the magnification is there in the bottom. So you can wear these all day. They're affordable, they're lightweight, and we can try them 90 days risk free. Order any pairs you think are beautiful and just keep the ones that look great on you.
And then I also ask about sort of the variables here. I don't doubt I'm going to get pretty high level play from Fernando Mendoza. And if I don't, I think it'll be because Miami's defensive front somehow wrecked the game. As much as Fernando Mendoza controls, let me put it this way, I trust him. I trust that dude implicitly. Carson Beck, there's some if. There's some if. It may sound disrespectful, whatever. I'm going to pick the game in a second. If I get that fourth quarter Ole Miss Carson Beck, for that matter, go back to the first of the season. If I get Notre Dame Carson Beck, I'm comfortable that Miami can win this game. Or I'm very comfortable they can give themselves a shot in the fourth quarter. And that's all you can ask for here. Miami's best is good enough to win this. Indiana has consistently shown their best. So my question basically boils down to, am I going to get Miami's best? Because I think a lot of people out there have questions of whose best can beat the other. I think Miami's best can win this. I just think Indiana is so good at forcing you to not play your best that they've continued to win games. Let's take a look at what the model thinks. There is differential here from what FanDuel has. FanDuel has Indiana minus 8.5. Model only has Indiana minus 5. I flipped 2 times, I think. Yes, I flipped 2 times on this game. 3 times, actually. So I was on something, went the other way, now I'm back this way. I think Miami's going to play their best game. So I'm going to ride that hunch. That their best is good enough on the line of scrimmage, that Carson Beck situationally is good enough, and that the kind of heat they can put on Indiana can force enough mistakes to where they take advantage of some. Now, I don't expect a flawless game from Miami either. I think it's unrealistic to expect to play that way against Indiana. I think they can walk the tightrope in this game.